Good day to you. This is August 21st, 2023. I am Pastor Neil Weemus, and this is kind of a mega reaction of movies that I've watched in recent months. Because last time I've done a review, it was for the review of the movie Sound of Freedom. And there's been a lot of movies that have come out recently, and I've seen them, and honestly, it's been a nice string of good movies. By and large, even though people talk a lot about the struggling of the box office, I honestly think this summer has been a good summer for movies. I mean, yeah, there's kind of your weaker ones. Flash was not as strong as you'd hoped it to be. But I mean, Guardians of the Galaxy 3 was really good. Across the Spider-Verse was very good. And in spite of all of its controversy, Sound of Freedom was a good movie. So let's talk about some of the other movies. And note, I'm going to bring in some talk about movies are older. I'm going to draw them in. But the first movie I am going to look at is Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. And so... Oops. So there you go. I have this the Wikipedia page up right now, just so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. And I can tell you that this movie was a really good movie. I was amazed by it. It was just really good action, very good plot. It amazes me that these movies are still good. Seventh Mission Impossible movie. And at this point, you have to begin having the discussion, is this one of the best, possibly amongst the best film franchises of all time? Because there hasn't been a truly bad Mission Impossible film. And the weirdest thing is it actually seems to be getting better. And the thing I really like about this movie, and it seems pretty forward-headed thinking, and this is going to apply to something I'm going to talk about in a little bit, but the main villain is AI, artificial intelligence. Something that everybody's talking about right now. That is an intriguing development. And that's going to lead to where I'm going to go in a little bit. But Mission Impossible was a very good movie. It's a bummer it didn't do better at the box office. Just glancing at this, currently it's at, $541 million box office. I mean, it made its budget, but I feel like it could have done better. Probably it was a bad release date. Sound of Freedom ended up being really successful, and that probably took a little bit from it, but it was a good movie. I mean, I really loved this movie, and it's worth watching. So the next movie I saw was later that week, and I went to see Oppenheimer. And I had a choice between Oppenheimer or Barbie, because there's the Barbieheimer challenge, where you go to see both movies back to back. And part of me is kind of tempted to still see that, because I do that, because I kind of feel like I got to see Barbie again, and I'm going to get to that in a bit. But Oppenheimer was a very good movie. It's a biopic, and it's about the invention of the nuclear bomb, and it's fascinating. It's a fascinating character study, history study, and you're not really certain of what to think of him. And Cillian Murphy does very good in his role. I kind of like the score. It felt kind of Hans Zimmer-esque, but it was not Hans Zimmer. Ludwig Göransson, I don't know if I pronounced that right, but he was the composer. Rami Malek, Matt Damon was in it, Emily Blunt. Emily Blunt was amazing in this movie. She did so good at it. So did Robert Downey Jr. Lots of some very strong performances, several good actors in it. So very good movie. And so then this leads to Barbie. Oops, I forgot to bring this up. Sorry, I did not mean to sing, but that's what you got. So here's the Barbie movie. So just first off, the Barbie movie is not a kid's movie. It is PG-13 for a reason. But that being said, and it has been pointed out to me by many parents, is even though you as a parent are aware of a lot of these adult jokes, your kids are clueless, right? And so some of the things, and I admit even myself got a little protective about kids, it's going over their heads. I guess it might be kind of working a little bit like the the Shrek movie was. Have you remember the way Shrek was? Shrek did a lot of that kind of humor too. So the thing is, and like I said, this is why I need to go rewatch the movie. And I think I came out of that movie with the wrong mindset. And after listening to a review from another pastor about this movie, I kind of want to watch. Like I said, I want to watch it again. And I want to bring all these first three movies that I've reviewed together into one thought point. I think we are beginning to see a return to a theme, film-wise. And I mean, three movies. I don't know if it's enough to spot a trend, but maybe it is. The 1990s. So last night, I decided. I don't remember the real reason why, but I decided I just wanted to watch the first two Terminator movies. So I watched the first one, and then I watched Terminator 2: Judgment Day. And the first Terminator is a very good. It's a great movie. I kind of like it because it's a bit of a horror flick. You could definitely tell it drew off of the Halloween films and kind of played into that to build the terror around the T-800. But that being said, I mean, but with that in mind, even though it's a good movie, and the thing is, though, and, going back in time, I like it. But the question is, what's better, Terminator 1 or Terminator 2? I mean, the other Terminators were kind of duds, and they had their issues. But Terminator 1 and Terminator 2, what is better? And it's really hard to ask because it honestly feels like two completely different movies. And I mean, you could tell they're connected. They're connected, but it feels like a different genre. Terminator 1 is like horror genre, like Friday the 13th or Halloween, like I'd said earlier. Whereas Terminator 2 is more in common with like Die Hard, or Lethal Weapon or something like that. It's like the action films of the late 80s. And so it's really hard to pick them because it feels like it's in two different genres. But it's still part of the same world. And the connection is still there. And so Terminator 2 is where I want to pull this. There's a connection to all this. Like, what does Terminator 2 have to do with Barbie? I'm going to get there. Terminator 2, again, I watched this last night. I don't think I've watched this for a very long time. And it's really interesting to watch it as an adult. Having experienced the world and everything. And especially the world we're in now. And it feels so... It's kind of uncomfortable to watch now. The hydrogen bomb scene, the dream sequence, I think is still is a very unsettling scene to watch. And according to some accounts, it may be the most accurate depiction of a hydrogen bomb going off in all of cinema. And it's terrifying to watch. But the whole thing of AI going off and everything. See, this is a thing about the 90s. So when I was in college, when I was at seminary, we talked about pre-modernity, modernity, and post-modernity, or pre-modernism, modernism, and postmodernism. And the postmodern era, a lot of it is dealing with the lies of modernity. Modernity promised that, science would bring success and make the world better. Technology would improve the world. And but post-modernity is basically saying, okay, it did make things better. It did make it so we could better keep people alive and things like that. But it also made us more efficient at killing each other. And this comes out in Terminator 2 very much. I mean, especially in the character Dyson. Dyson, he's building this computer program that it's going to make it, makes a flight safer to help people in their daily lives, to save lives. That's what he's seeking to do. He's seeking the promise of modernity. But the you find the system he's building is the thing that will lead to these Terminators, these machines that basically destroys the world. And I mean that's pretty much it. And so this is where it gets to 3 movies that came out within 2 weeks of each other. Mission Impossible is about AI taking over and possibly inciting a war. Terminator 2. And by the way, I think this, you could even make a case that some of this even ties in with some of the stuff that was going on in Secret Invasion on Disney Plus. But anyways, that's another topic. Oppenheimer is about the invention of the atomic bomb. All right? And, I mean, the last line is all about how we have made it easier, that he has given the tools for humanity to destroy itself. Then you have Barbie. It's pink and colorful and all that. But don't mistake it. There's underlying themes and there's deconstructionism. And it seems like it's almost a fight back. Even itself is a fight back against the lies that were given to us. The lies of the promise of progress. Are we coming back to this? Now I gotta rewatch Barbie, like I said, and I gotta get a little bit more clear to this, because as a pastor made a comment, is this movie's satirical. It's satire. And I think that gives a different perspective. Is it trying to be ridiculous at times? And very, very tongue-in-cheek? Changes the way you look at it. But it does seem that, like, these movies, Terminator 2 was doing it in the 90s. And the 90s was big about this, the failure of technology. Jurassic Park was, hey, we're doing this to make people entertained and have a good time, but, the dinosaurs start eating people. Titanic, Saving Private Ryan, Schindler's List are real-life examples of technology failing. The Matrix was one of the last big movies of the 90s. That was, technology turning against us. I mean, much of what you see in the 90s films was all about the lies of the promise of science and progress. And I'm just wondering, are we beginning to see that? Are we beginning to see a reaction? I mean, we've spent quite a bit of time, I think the 2000s, 2010s, was spending a lot of time in the fantastical elements, storytelling. You had things like Lord of the Rings. You had the Marvel Cinematic Universe, when it was up at its peak. And, at Harry Potter and all these different things. But, I mean, you did have Game of Thrones, which had the fantastical elements, but it was very jaded. And I'm wondering, again, are we now here in the 90s, in 2023, heading back to a 90s type style? Where everything is kind of jaded in despair, and that kind of matches with society. And, it's kind of a reminder, it is. Our hope isn't found in science. Science is a good thing. It's a gift from God. But is that where we have our hope? So, all right. So Barbie, I need to go rewatch it. And I don't think my initial review is good. My initial reaction. I'm glad I didn't type anything up I wanted to. And I'm glad I didn't, because somebody gave me some good perspective on it. So I'm going to go back and see it again. And like I said, don't freak out about kids singing. It's not a kids movie, but it sounds like kids aren't catching up on most of the stuff you're observing. And even like some of the jokes, we all had Kindergarten Cop. That little kid stood up. I was like in elementary. And I remember that I laughed like hee hee. Boy, girls have this and boys have that. Hee hee. Come on, we did it as a kid. I mean, what's that? So we're offended if Barbie has those type of jokes. Come on. So, all right, let's go over to. So I'm done with that one. So let's switch over. Let's switch directions. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about Blue Beetle quick. This one I could talk about really fast. I have one little complaint about, but I'll get to that in a second. Blue Beetle was a very good movie, and they're talking about it failing at the box office, and I'm not entirely surprised. I mean, how many people knows who the Blue Beetle knows any of their story? I don't, and I'm a bit of a comic book fan, and I mean, I know there's bigger fans out there than me, but I really know very little about the Blue Beetle, and so it's going to be hard one to market. And you combine that with some of the failures of DC, the way Flash went. They didn't want to oversell. It's like, this movie's amazing. They tried that with Flash, and it failed. So, but I went to Blue Beetle. I saw it in IMAX, but I don't think it helped, but I think you can enjoy it without IMAX. And it was a good movie, and I really liked it. It had humor, and I know some people don't like that. That's a little bit Marvel. But like when Marvel had its good humor, it also had emotion. And this is the thing. Like Thor Love and Thunder, people keep bringing this up. And the problem with Thor Love and Thunder wasn't that it had humor. It's that the humor was poorly placed. It was poorly timed. And it took away from emotional scenes. Blue Beetle seemed to perfectly get that balance. And because there are moments that I was laughing, chuckling, and there were moments that I had tears in my eyes, and it was so good. And I think this is a good step forward into the DC universe. And yes, I love the fact that it's Latino because let's face it, there are not a lot of good Latino hero mainstream their own title superheroes in comic books. So I think in movies or whatever. And so that I agree, that's a big deal. The only complaint I had on that was not that I don't have a complaint with it being Latino, but I have a complaint that they do a little bit too much of the "Whoa, am I'm Latino" type storyline, or "I'm a Latino and life's not fair" type thing. And we could get into debates about all that, but I wish they would have focused on it so much. Not because it bothers me really. It's just, well, it does. It doesn't bother me because of the issue. It bothers me that it happens so much. I mean, it seems to be a common thread in a lot of the female-led movies. It seems to be a common thread in a lot of the black-led movies. And it's overdone. It's like it kind of comes off as if somebody who's of certain demographic group cannot do a movie without telling this story. If they don't have a movie about woe is me type mentality, well, it just won't work. They're in all their movies. It's like in all these movies. And it's like, why? I mean, a Latino isn't inferior to a white man. They could a person who's Latino can have just as much skill and gifts and abilities. They can tell just as good of a story as any white person can. So why are they pigeonholed with this storyline over and 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 over again? They can tell other stories, can't they? I'm sorry I'm using that they or their, but I'm not Latino. I can't say we can tell other stories. That's not true. And I guess I'm trying to speak in short term. I apologize if that's coming off offensive or whatever. But Latino, black, women, female, there's other storylines. These groups, these individuals can tell stories that are not pigeonholed. into that one plot bit. So, I mean, if that's the only complaint I had, it's not so much that it ruins the movie, obviously. It's a good movie. And it's sad that it's, there's all this press on, see, James Gunn's DC's in trouble. No, it's not. This movie was good. That's okay if a movie isn't great. If it's a good movie and doesn't do great at the box office, you can actually build off of that. That's how The Dark Knight happened. Batman Begins really didn't do that great at the box office. But it showed people that they could trust Batman movies again. And with it, The Dark Knight became a monster success. And so, Blue Beetle, I'm not saying it's going to lead to a Dark Knight caliber box office. But it's a reminder that it is something to build on because the foundation, the movie itself is good. And I hope DC and Warner Brothers are not afraid to build up from it. And so this leads me to the final movie of discussion here. And that is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. And I saw this about a week or two ago. And this movie was awesome. Like I said, this is why I say it's been a great summer for movies. Oppenheimer, Mission Impossible, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Blue Beetle. That's 1, 2, 3, and then Barbie, I think, might have been. I got to rewatch it again, like I said. 4, 5 great, really strong, solid to great movies. Add, Sound of Freedom. 6, 6 quality movies within the span of 2 months. That's pretty impressive. You're happy if you could get 2 in a month, right? And 2 of them came out on the same day. So, but anyways, this movie, I know some issues are going to have because it is very different from the source from the cartoons, from the original movies, from some of the comic books. But the thing is that there is a lot of variety in the way the Turtles have been portrayed in film and television. And I think that kind of gives license to some of this differences and some of these changes. And so I'm not really upset about that. I know some people are. Some people got really angry and all that. But I liked it. I liked this movie. I liked the characters. I liked the storyline. It had good humor, good action. I like the callbacks to some of the old 90s movies, like Go Ninja, Go Ninja, Go. I like that. But when I got home, a few days later, I decided to go watch the original Turtles from 1990. And I had to watch it, and especially in reaction to some of the reviews of Mutant Mayhem. And so some people said, hey, I like this version of Splinter better. Truth is, I actually don't. I like Jackie Chan, okay? And I actually was okay with this Splinter. But I don't think it was better. I think it's good, but I don't think it's as good. Splinter had a much more mysterious past. And it would explain why the martial arts are so good. It's because he didn't just learn it from a television like they showed in there. And maybe it'll get revealed that's not totally the truth. But the way he learned his stuff, okay, the background, the past, I thought that was more interesting. Of course, it could be revealed at some point that really is his past. We don't know what they're going to do with the sequels. But I prefer that background. I also heard somebody argue that this movie, they act more like teenagers than they did in the 1990 one. And I don't agree, the 1990 film. And I don't agree with that. I believe both of them act like teenagers, but you have to remember this is 2023. That is 1990. This is Generation Z. This, and I know I'm pointing in the wrong direction because of the way my camera is. But anyways, this is 1990. So this is Generation X. Generation X and Generation Z are very different generations. And the differences between the two Turtles movies and the teenagers in the two movies can be found in the different generations. But not only that, the difference can be found in their father or their mentor. Splinter in 2023 movie in Mutant Mayhem is very different from Splinter in 1990. Splinter in 1990 is a sensei. He's the dedicated ninja guy. In 2023, he is not that guy. He's very different. So if you're raised by those two different people, you're going to be different. They're still like teenagers. They're getting in fights with each other. Mikey is getting crushing on April O'Neil. But I'm going to get to that a little bit too, by the way. But I liked the story. It's a really good analysis. These two movies are very good analysis in the changes in generations. 1990 film is much more jaded, much more challenging. And by the way, the portrayal of teenagers in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is not in just the turtles, but it's in the people who are being seduced and lured away by Shredder. And I rewatched it. 1990 film is still better. I'm going to straight up say it's still better than the 2023. 2023 one, the new one that just came out, is a good movie. It's enjoyable. It's great for kids. But 1990 is still a good film, and it still has its place. And I think it's horribly underrated. And it really spoke to the cries of teenagers. And I'm going to tell you something. The plot line of the 1990 film still has weight today. Because we live in the midst of a mental health crisis, especially amongst teenagers. Teenagers feel like they don't belong. And this is why I honestly believe the 1990 film, even though it is Gen X, it has a place even in 2023. The storyline does. Now, April O'Neil, again, I like the April O'Neil in the new movie. I liked what they did with her. It's a very different change. And I know people are like, well, she's supposed to be white. And like, well, here's the deal. Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird, the guys that created Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, can't come to agreement on that. Peter, according to Kevin Eastman, April O'Neil's mixed race. According to Peter Laird, she is Irish and very white. So they can't come to an agreement. So we really shouldn't get too hung up on that. So what you actually see in the movie is probably Kevin Eastman's version of April O'Neil. What you saw in 1990, that was Peter Laird's version of April O'Neil. And which one is better? I'll say that one's a toss-up. I think they both had their strengths. I really do like April O'Neil's in the 1990 film. I did not like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2. That was I did not like that one. But I did like the one in 1990. I thought she was interesting. She carried weight. She was the she kind of helped bring us in to the story, help us get connected to these kind of crazy, outlandish characters. So, yeah, there you go. I just revealed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 movies in a half hour. I know it's a long, but 8 movies in a half hour. Some old, some new, just comparing the current with the old. So, there you go. I know, Just Talking Movies is a pastor's perspective on movies. And just kind of a reminder of how movies can actually say a lot about the world. If you notice, in every single one, I brought something up in the world. So I didn't bring up a lot of theology with it, but maybe some other time. So blessings to you in Jesus' name. Amen.